Welcome to Revive Ministries Podcast. As we enter the month of August, I'm reminded of the difference is in the communities and how much they bring to whether people feel connected or they don't. And as we in August, obviously in the States, it's National Wellness Month, prioritizing one's self care, managing stress, promoting healthy routines. And some of the hardest things as adults to say is, I need help. Tell you the truth. So I have a new guest. His name is, let me get this straight, is J. Edwards Holt. Am I saying that correctly? All right. Thank you
Yep.
so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I just want to share with those who are in the States, 988 is a suicide crisis lifeline, but wherever you are around the world, I do encourage you to find what resources. Me working in the mental health field, I know I don't like recreating the wheel. What works? Find what works. What groups you're connected to. Where do you feel that you can ask this question? Where can you say, I need help and not feel bad about it? Those are the groups I would encourage you to be around. When we're in crisis, it may be difficult, but you want to be around people that you feel you can actually ask that question. So I just want to start by saying people say it better than me, so I'm going to start with a quote. So we're going to go there and kind of see what what your thoughts are. How do you like to be? Do you usually call yourself J. Edward Holt? Do you have a shortened version? What would you want me to share with?
Most people will just say Jay.
Okay, well, Jay, welcome. Yeah. I'm gonna have this this quote. Like I said, they say it better than me. It's from David Spangler, and he says, "Some people think think they are in a community, but they're only in proximity. True community requires commitment and openness. It is a willingness to extend yourself to encounter and know the other." What comes to mind when you hear this quote?
Like you said, with with Wellness Month and everything, I think that it's just having that community, having that foundation in your community is really essential to dealing with mental health and to overcoming it. I think for sure. So absolutely.
And I think a lot of times we put a lot of maybe weight on the tangible gains. Maybe I get a good a new apartment, a new place, or a new job, or a better situation, but we still need community no matter what. A lot of times at the end of the day, I feel being in a healthy environment can do wonders, and it won't solve all the problems, but if you're around positive, if you're able to create a community, not that you need it all the time, it can actually do a lot of great things in your overall wellness, whether physical or mental. I want to ask you, like, a lot of times, right now, everything's social media. A lot of times, see the negative part of it. And Kurt Von, I can't say his Von. I'll share the name after this. I read this quote. It says, "What should young people do with their lives today? Many things, obviously, but the most daring thing is to create stable communities in which the terrible disease of loneliness can be cured." I think sometimes when we think of the saturation of how we perceive social media, we don't really feel connected. We're just there, kind of liking, but I think the idea of loneliness versus alone, It's a concept that I find intriguing, especially when it comes to communities. I could be around 1,000 people and feel like I'm not with anyone. What do you
Right.
think when you see this quote? What comes to mind when you hear this?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, you can. It's not just about being around people. It's about being around the right people. And
Mm.
being around people that are supportive to you, and that kind of might know a little bit about what's going on. But if you're around like 1,000 people that don't know anything about you, then you may as well be alone. And I think a lot of people that spend time with other people feel alone, even though they're around a lot of other people. So
Yeah, and I'm not trying to say to those listening that community is hard. Connecting with people are hard. It's not that I'm trying to evade the like once you be around right people. Like it's more about the honesty you can be with the person. Relationships, building friendships, building communities takes work. Takes communication. Takes the willingness to be wrong sometimes. I think sometimes we need to challenge each other in the sense of our own. We're brought. I know I have my own context of again of what I remember being growing up, but understand that there's going to be people around you who don't think like you. And
hmm
that's okay. I think that can be a healthy tension. You may never agree with each other, but you can actually be around that person. The community doesn't have to be one in mind. I think that the danger with that is the honesty doesn't become really genuine. It just becomes convenient. And I think we can be careful when it comes to how relationships takes work. Those whoever I'm married, but anyone who had anyone close to them or even a relationship, it doesn't matter. It takes work to keep that going. Uh,
right.
and I want to ask you, how do you think we may be able to be better in helping those in need in our community? I know we've just been talking about general communication, and what have you seen work in the community settings and what have not?
Yeah, I mean, I think for one thing, probably the most important thing is just being more sensitive to the needs of people in our community, whether that be people in your neighborhood, your city, or your friend group. Sometimes your friend group is your community. um, and just being more sensitive to people's needs, and you know sometimes asking somebody, are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they may just be waiting for you to ask. Um, I've been in situations like that where I didn't want to talk about something, but when somebody asked, I was like, well, you know what, they're asking, so I'll go ahead and talk about it. And so I think that works a lot, is just checking in with people, and trying to communicate that way.
And also, I feel like on top of that, what you're saying is just none of us are going to have all the answers. Like,
Right.
even if you're asking the person what's going on, and if it feels heavy and you don't know, that's probably appropriate. You're probably not the person that needs to actually help the person, but you can actually provide an environment that question is not seen as odd or
hmm
that you're singled out. The idea is that truly, I may not understand what you're going through, but I want to help. I want to help you get there, or maybe let's look at some places that may be helpful to address this concern that you have.
hmm
And I feel sometimes we're so concerned about having the right answer. Well, I'm not a PhD. I'm not. I'm not a doctor, MD, and everything else all at
Right.
once. I'm a friend, and that is
hmm
enough. Sometimes, I think a lot of times we get caught up of saying the right thing. I don't know, working on mental health field, what I realize is listening is key. The fact is,
hmm
and being genuine in the fact that I don't know. That's okay. I don't
Right.
know.
Yeah.
I don't
That's
know. That's yeah. Go ahead.
that's what I tell people a lot is, I may not be able to help you, but if I can't, I can tell you, where to get the help, or help you
Mhm.
find the help, or something like that. So.
I think that environment usually germinates more of a safe place. I know that word's been used a lot, but more the idea that accountability is not a bad word when it's a safe place. The idea that
Right.
if you're really trying to better yourself, whether it's mental health, whether it's substance use. You just felt a lot of things with substance use is a lot of shame. Well, the fact of the matter, a lot of people fall back into the habit, and that's okay. That's
Hmm.
expected. Like the idea is, the hope is that he's around the community or she's around the community that will they'll foster the support she or he or may need to kind of move forward. So the idea is that we're in this perpetual how you say um, we're never finished, really. You know what I mean, Jay? We're never really
Hmm.
finished. Like our lives are always constantly either moving here from there. Our friendships change. I have friends in college that I had, and they're still good friends, but our life are different. I still
Right.
wish them the best, but our
Hmm.
lives don't really intersect as much. But I
Yeah,
do,
you just grow apart for
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
But doesn't seem like you seem less of them. It's just your life continues, just like anything else, and your
Hmm.
priorities and your aspirations. I like to every new guest that I have, and also those who are returning. I like to give them an opportunity to share a little bit about yourself, what you've been, and yeah, just share everyone basically those who are listening, and just what kind of brought you here, if that may be not this podcast, but where you are at today, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first off, let me reintroduce myself. I'm J.Edwards Holt. I am an author of fantasy fiction. Most of what I write is in the young adult category, but also have a teen comic and a children's book.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and aside from writing fantasy fiction, I do a little bit of writing in the religious genre, and I write regularly for a health and wellness magazine.
Okay.
Um, Myself, I have spent the last 20 plus years battling mental illness, so I consider myself a mental health advocate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I saw where your show, focuses on that, so I appreciated that, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yep, that's
Yeah.
where I
So,
am.
what helped you get to the point where you're doing all that you're doing? It's easy to say. Yeah, I'm sure it's just little stuff, but it seems like you're supported. It seems like you're moving along with purpose. A lot of times with
Mhm.
mental health, and I even know myself, being one who had and still struggles with mental health here and there. I know that it's a struggle to stay not ruminating on the negativity, not kind of
Mhm.
getting stuck, not feeling you're stuck, and kind of really, at least for me, it's more about this self reflection that I kind of keep have to do, and
Mhm.
also kind of. So I just want to ask. I know um, if you could kind of share what has helped you get to where you're at today, being a mental
Mhm.
health advocate, what would you share with someone who's listening, maybe not doing so well, but maybe some words of encouragement? Obviously, everyone's situation is different, but anything you would like to share would be appreciated.
Yeah, for sure. When it comes to writing and producing the writing content that I do, it really um, helps to have purpose.
Hmm.
To have a purpose for that writing and have a reason why you do it. For me, there's a lot of different reasons, but one reason is when I get positive feedback and when I find out that my writing has touched somebody, it just
Hmm.
makes it all the more worth it. To continue on and but as far as anyone out there who's struggling, I would say, don't be afraid to go out there and get help or to ask for help, um, because a lot of times, the quicker you deal with something, the better it's going to be.
Hmm.
Um, and you know, even though you may not feel like it, there really are people out there that want to help you and will help you. So I encourage anybody to definitely get to work on that in any way that they can.
Yeah. Creativity has always been, at least for me, very helpful, and I imagine it been helpful for you. Like, there's
Hmm.
something cathartic about expressing yourself in a way that maybe doesn't always have to be factual. This could be something cathartic that you express how you're feeling. For me, I love music. For me, I love just I game, and I make videos, but I in another platform. But I just love the
Hmm.
idea that I can kind of share my stories in a way that's just cathartic. Long day, you need something to kind of express yourself, and I love this podcast because it gives me an avenue to continue the conversation that a lot of people don't like to have. And
Hmm.
I do appreciate you coming on. I know I'm a science fiction fan. I'm a fantasy fan. I remember reading Isaac Asimov when I was younger, and just kind of just loving the intention, I guess how would say the intentionality in a lot of the writing. Like it's very
Hmm.
specific. It's very sometimes very relevant, even though it's not really real per se. But there's a lot of
Hmm.
context and a lot of uh, I guess themes that we can relate today, even
Yeah.
today, of what's
Hmm.
going on. Moral dilemmas. How do we go through? And we're talking about community. I love this African proverb. I just want to share with those listening. It says, "I want to. If you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together." I
Hmm.
think that's speaks volumes of what community is. I'm not trying to
Hmm.
tell people to be social butterflies because I know I'm not. I'm just not. But at the same time, I do recognize I need to be around people.
Hmm.
I'm not by myself, um, and I feel finding and understanding what that balance is very important. And I don't know
Absolutely.
when you look at this quote, anything pop up for you when you see this African proverb per se.
You know how it just reminds me how they always say, it takes a village.
Mm-hmm.
It's just amazing what you can do, when you come together versus what you can do alone. Just like anything that a lot of things to get done, like a movie production or something. You don't always think about the team it takes.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much, if you have a team willing to work, you can just about get anything done. So that's what it reminds me of.
Yeah, and I also would like to say, just from my experience, I know this can sound weird, but personalize your care. Like
Mm.
personalize your mental health care, your physical, because you have your own context. So, if you don't like a doctor's opinion, I would say get a second opinion.
Hmm.
If you're struggling with medication, funny enough, a lot of times, and I'm sure you could relate to this, at least heard of this. People will come to my office and they would a lot of things are going on, and they would say I don't want to make the mental health provider or whoever feel bad, but the medication's not working. I'm just like,
Mm.
well, that's something that you need to share. So I feel that like
Right.
that there might be that disconnect that feels that because they're not doing well, then they themselves are not well, and they themselves are
Hmm.
not doing well, which kind of reflects on their value. But I would encourage that when you personalize your care, it does. I guess that's what I've seen has been better. But at the same time,
Hmm.
on the other side of it, don't personalize the barriers. A lot of times
Mm.
things can happen, but a lot of times it's really when we kind of think of it as, oh, they did this because of me or what I've said. A
Hmm.
lot of times it's simply a mistake. I'll just be honest. There's, people are human. I'm human. So if you make it very personal, it can be more of a bigger barrier. The goal is to what? To get better. Let's find solutions together, and the community could be part of that. So
Hmm.
if you don't like something, I would encourage those in mental health who are struggling, be intentional about it. Personal, make it personal. Like
Hmm.
obviously, the squeaky wheel doesn't really get the grease in this matter, but do your homework if and try to ask the hardest question that a lot of us as adults have is that I need help. This is not
Hmm.
working. And I know it's easier said than done, but I do encourage you sometimes when you do have that support, when you do take time to think of what is better for Robert. What does it mean to be better for um, J.Edwards Holt? What does that look like? Well, no, we
Hmm.
can't just generalize our care because sometimes we the expectations and I just see it a lot better when there's some ownership to that. The like there's more of a buy into the person's care and
Hmm.
in the idea that um, I'm not looking at WebMD all day, but I'm also looking at what has worked for me and trust your instincts. If it doesn't feel
Hmm.
right, ask your doctor, ask your nurse, say, hey, this medication makes me feel this way. Your
Hmm.
care matters. And I would just want to just share that with those who are listening, because um, your value doesn't stem from what you're going through. You're not defined by your diagnosis. You're
Exactly.
just still J.Edwards Holt. I'm still Robert. And funny enough, not to that our diagnoses are only there to help us find the proper treatment that may be helpful. That's
Hmm.
it. And I want to ask you, um, why do you think our communities matter to our overall wellness? I know we said this, but I want to hear, what do you think? How does a community can help? Besides that, you want to share that we already said, or anything that we haven't said?
Yeah. I think it means, so much when you've got that community. Sometimes we have family and friends that will support us, but then there's others who are not so fortunate that
Hmm.
to have family and friends to support them. So, people like that, if your family or your friends don't support you, I would encourage people to go out and find some kind of support group,
Hmm.
like, not just your therapists and your doctors, but some kind of group. They have like groups where you can talk with people and stuff, and even that way, or going to church and finding a good group, or
Hmm.
just any kind of group that you can find that will have your back. It's really
Hmm.
gonna make all the difference in the world, in
Hmm.
trying to overcome your illness, I think.
Yeah, and I also encourage just like getting out there. I remember with COVID when it first started, one thing I noticed was how much when I went to a store, it just felt so empty. I go to a store, I just want to race out. The line's too long, and no one's talking to each other. It felt like I'm missing something. I know with us as humans, we forget things so easily, but that time we couldn't talk to our cashiers that we didn't really thought we cared about. But
Yeah.
then later on, we're like, man, this is kind of bleak. I'm like rushing
Hmm.
out here, but you know, I think community it matters to the overall wellness because it just, like you said, find what works, support groups, church, whatever it was, was
Hmm.
helpful. I remember when I went to, just a short story. When I went to church, I didn't. My parents were in church. I didn't really like it. As an adult, I came into it, and I remember, really, all I did was one thing. And what I'm trying to say
Hmm.
is, I did the sound. So all I said, I didn't even listen to the servants or whatever. I
Hmm.
just made sure that they were heard. And for me, sometimes just we may not be know what's ahead of us, but sometimes just getting involved in any sort of way, um that gets you out. I know it's easier
Hmm.
said than done, but I just remember, at least I didn't feel alone because around people. I may not understand or agree at that time what they were saying, but
Hmm.
they made me be a part of something. I think when it comes to community, that's, as much as we may not see it at the present moment, it can be very helpful along the way, when it
Hmm.
comes to community. So this month is National Wellness Month. I remember, I don't know, when I was in school, they had the presidential like fitness test. Remember that, around that, like
Yeah.
around that time, and
Hmm.
I don't know. It was, now obviously right now it's not school for many, but I just remember they had the national or the presidential, how many pull-ups, and made everyone feel uncomfortable. Those who couldn't,
Yeah.
but um, I when you think about national wellness, not in the idea of wellness, what would you want people to remember this particular month, this year? Every year is different. We
Hmm.
got out of COVID, and I know people are tired of that, but really, I'm just really focusing on how detached we were, how much we were kind of like, we have contactless delivery, which I admit I like, just
Hmm.
getting something delivered, but it definitely changed a lot. And what would you like for us as people to remember when we think about our wellness in 2023?
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's definitely kind of hard to get back in the swing of things after COVID, because that's always kind of in our minds, in the back of
Mhm.
our minds, that whole being more protective of ourselves and everything. But at the same time, I think that, it's good to be somewhat protective over your health, in that, you know, um, just I would encourage people to, as far as physical health and stuff, always get all the screenings that, you're supposed to and everything. And just um, maybe, get a physical every year, keep a check on yourself as much as you can, just to, try to stay ahead of things. I mean, that's what I try to do, is get, a
Mhm.
physical every year, just in case, but, um, I think it's your wellness, your physical health is going to impact your mental health too, and
Mhm.
and vice versa. So, I think it's very important to try to have a healthy balance between both of those. And there are plenty of doctors out there and stuff that can help you with that. And I think that that's a great thing to remember for right now.
Yeah, and I would just piggyback saying, we realize with COVID that there's a lot of self care that we can do and may need to do. Part
Hmm.
of that you mentioned just getting screened, going to get physicals every year, but also just do do a wellness check to yourself. See what's going on. Yeah, the
Hmm.
one thing I noticed is, like I mentioned, being creative, and one thing I cathartically it's wonderful, but it doesn't replace sleep. So I do encourage those who are listening, even if you're very creative, recognize how much sleep you get. It's important to get the sleep that you need. It's one thing
Hmm.
to kind of decompress, but it doesn't take the place of getting restful sleep. So when we think about wellness in its whole, it's connected. So if I'm not getting enough sleep, it's going to impact my mental health. It's going to impact how
Absolutely.
the decisions that I make. So it make me irritable. It may cause other issues. So I do encourage, when it comes to coping skills, those who are in mental health, and that's good. But at the same time, understand that they're both connected. So if you're
Hmm.
not getting enough sleep, you're spending all your nights just grinding. I encourage you to find ways to get that sleep. Rest is a very important part of it, but also just self check. And what we noticed with COVID is that at a drop of a dime, things can change immediately. So,
Hmm.
um, and as with your physical, connect. Learn ways that you can connect to your community. If you're an introvert or you just not really like a lot of people, you don't have to be around a lot of people, but
Hmm.
you need to be connected with a few, just so you can ask the question, I need help at the time
Hmm.
that you do, if you're not feeling you're able to do it with by yourself. I was going to ask you one last, your final thoughts. I know we kind of breezed by through a lot of this, but I think it's so important. Just taking a moment. We forget things so easily. Sometimes we don't remember our communities around us or the support we have.
Hmm.
um, Not to take for granted, but also to recognize that things change, and maybe being intentional about how we approach our communities, how we approach the people that we see that are needing something. Don't be so concerned about being right or
Hmm.
knowing what to say. Just listen. Anything you want to say as your final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. About when someone wants to tell you something's going on with them, you should listen, as opposed to, don't be too quick to give your opinion, or to try to fix them, because that can really turn them away.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people just want somebody to listen.
Hmm.
I always, say I don't give advice unless somebody asks for it.
Yeah.
Because if they don't ask for it, they probably don't want it. And if you start just giving them too much advice, you really turn them away, and they probably won't do what you advise them to do anyway. Um, so that's a great point about just being a listener. That's very, very important.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you so much for joining the conversation. I don't kind of treat lightly the ones who my guests that come, because it's never really easy just to share. This is I know this is more general when we talk about wellness, but we're talking about people who may be feeling like they're not in the community. I remember Robin Williams kind of stressed this, and the idea that he thought that um, uh, you know being he stressed the whole point of being around a whole bunch of people and feeling like no one was there, that he was at the loneliness. He kind of recognized, I forgot the actual quote, but I just remember it really stemmed for the idea of loneliness. And for me, there's a big difference from being alone and being lonely. I can be alone and being content, but when we're feeling
Mm-hmm.
lonely, we don't feel connected. And as a community, when we think about our health, it's how we relate to our community that kind of can bridge that gap to get the help we need. I just want to say again, thank you, J. Edward Holt, Jay, for coming on and sharing your insight. Everything that Jay has shared, and I'll put in the notes if they want to check out what you've been writing and kind of get a grasp, you know, a grip of some of the books you share. I always like to give an opportunity for those who are coming on to kind of have the opportunity to get others to kind of see what you're doing. I want to say I really appreciate what you are doing. It's great.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. If anybody wants to find out more about my books, you can Google J. Edwards Holt, or you can go to jedwardsholt.com. And I got a list of all my books, and you can follow me on any of the social media outlets at J. Edwards Holt. I'm always, working to write new stuff. So, um, working on a few things now. I just released a coloring book based on my characters and stories and stuff. I got a professional artist to illustrate it, so I'm excited about that.
That's
That's available now, but yeah, just follow me and check out my work.
Yeah, I'll put those who are listening and those who are watching. The all the links will be below in the notes. So
Okay.
remember, I just want to share with those who are listening. Stay updated with Revive Ministries through various platforms, but the website is probably the best way to kind of funnel your. We're on Facebook, but we're also on a lot of platforms when it comes to podcasts, and we're also on YouTube, where you'll also see the video version of this. This is goodbye from Revive Ministry Podcast. Leaving with this last quote. It's from Coretta Scott King. It says, "The greatness of a community is most accurately measured by the compassionate actions of its members."